Here's the podcast script. Europe's heat politics, that's our story today, and it's one that touches on extreme weather, political opportunism, and a surprisingly contentious home appliance. Last week, temperatures across southern England and Wales spiked dramatically. London hit 35 degrees Celsius. Schools shut down. Trains were cancelled. Some hospitals halted elective procedures. And here's the detail that really captures the moment. The opening session of London Climate Action Week, a conference literally focused on surviving extreme heat, was called off because Britain's National Weather Service issued a red warning for extreme heat. Now, just 8 days before all of that happened, Kemi Badenoch, the leader of Britain's Conservative Party, was standing in Aberdeen, a major hub for North Sea oil extraction, declaring that, quote, the war on oil and gas must end, and calling for Britain to start drilling again. That tension, between supporting fossil fuels and facing the consequences of a warming planet, is the central challenge for right-wing populist parties across Europe right now. And their answer, increasingly, is to talk about air conditioning. Here's how that works politically. First, pushing for more air conditioning lets these parties point to government failures to help people adapt to extreme heat. Second, it becomes a cultural weapon against green parties and environmental groups, which have often criticized air conditioners for their high energy demands. And third, perhaps most importantly, it lets far-right politicians avoid talking about the longer-term cause of the heat waves altogether: rising greenhouse gas emissions. In France, Marine Le Pen, leader of the National Rally Party, pledged on Friday that if elected president, she would put into place what she called a massive air conditioning plan, starting with the most vulnerable populations. She also claimed that air conditioning units do not exacerbate global warming, arguing that environmentalists, quote, twist the studies. For the record, new air conditioning units have become greener in recent years, but they do contribute to climate change by consuming large amounts of electricity, which, when it doesn't come from renewable sources, adds to the emissions warming the planet. The debate played out vividly in the Belgian city of Ghent. The municipal website last week discouraged the use of air conditioners, saying, and this is a real quote, the best air conditioner is a tree, and suggesting residents request a free tree to plant outside their homes. The city later quietly removed the phrase avoid air conditioners, replacing it with cool smartly. A spokesman clarified that health always comes first in a heat wave, and that the city had already installed 30 portable units in daycare centers. But by then, a right-wing member of the Flemish parliament had already seized on the original wording on social media, writing that it was absurd for governments to advise against air conditioning under pressure from what he called left-green mumbo-jumbo, and asking how many deaths the government would have on its conscience. Now, it's worth noting that Europe looks different from the US on this issue. About 85% of Europeans, according to a survey by the EU's Public Opinion Service, consider climate change a serious problem and support action on it. Research even shows that extreme heat events in Germany have meaningfully boosted support for the Green Party. But, and this is the key finding, that same research shows extreme weather does not guarantee a backlash against climate-skeptic parties either. Floods, heat waves, emergencies of all kinds leave governments scrambling. And that scramble creates voter frustration. For populist parties on the right, voter frustration, whatever is driving it, is potent fuel. So the politics of heat going forward may come down to two questions: will governments get better at adapting to extreme weather? And will voters focus on the short-term politics of air conditioning or the long-term politics of what's making the world so hot in the first place? I'm your host, and that's the story from Europe today, where the heat is rising, and so is the political temperature.